Welcome back to the Predictable Revenue Podcast. I'm your host, Collin Stewart. Today, I'm joined by Blake Nolan. He was the first account executive over at Seamless AI. And today we're talking about what it's like to be the first. Blake, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Collin, for having me, man. Pleasure to be here.
I do feel like I've seen this background, but I think it was Nick Offerman drinking a thing of scotch for Christmas time. It was like
I did
the Nick Offerman Yuletide.
Honest, but I'm technically on the employee clock right now. And so it could be frowned upon in certain HR circles, so we're going to keep it after hours.
Yeah, totally fair. Totally fair. So I want to start with just, I know you were employee number 5. Talk to me about what's different when you're the first sales hire at a startup.
Man, well, first of all, I'll preface it by saying before I got into this, I didn't even know what SaaS meant. And I had the concept of selling software. I've heard of it. Had no idea what I know what a tech startup was never part of anything like it. So I just went in with an attitude of, okay, let's generate as much revenue as fast as possible and retain as much revenue as we can, fight like hell for it, and be prepared for constant storms of problems every single day, and always be solutions oriented. And so we just kind of took that attack toward it. And you realize very quickly that your job isn't just sales. It's support, it's CS, it's training, interviewing, onboarding. So as an early, whether it's sales or I would say just even most positions at a startup, you have to be prepared to do a lot of things that are outside of your job description, for the sake of the company.
There's one thing you told me earlier about what happened anytime a customer sent you an email.
Yes. And this kind of gets into, I think, another question we'll talk about later, like how can you separate yourself? Because look, when you're part of a tech startup, your product will not be as good as your competitors. It's going to take years to catch up. It's going to take time. So you have to control the controllables. And one thing you can control is how good your service is and how well you treat your customers and how good you make them feel taken care of, right? So my thing was, okay, our product isn't as good as our number one competitor we're trying to go up against here, but I know I'm going to provide the absolute best service possible. So every time I got as we started acquiring more accounts, and we're high transactional, so I was one call closing sometimes 3-5 accounts a day. We had a day where we closed 10 deals in a day. Just wild, right? A lot of those one.
That's crazy.
So you start, the support tickets start to tick up, especially when the software is in the early stages, right? So anytime I would get a support email, as soon as I'm done with a demo or a phone call, my next thing would be to pick up the phone and call my customer who sent that email, right? And so when they would pick up, they would say, wow, that was quick, or wow, man, thanks for calling. And I'm like, yeah, so I read your problem. Let's try this. So I'll hop my Zoom real quick. And I would do like live one-on-one support or talking through a problem before. And sometimes you have to create a support ticket. But if I could just get past that and help the client solve a problem now, while also preserving the bandwidth of our very limited support team, I would do that for all the right reasons. And what happened through that process, one, the client was extremely appreciative of that. So that's like one of those micro edges in the customer journey. The customer can either feel great right here or going to be a little more frustrated as time goes on without a problem and solution. So my goal was to get to a solution ASAP, and if there wasn't, make them feel great about and paint the proper expectation about support and all that. Then once the problem is solved and I'm one-on-one with them, I'm like, so how's everything else going? Right? What do you like about Seamless so far? Where are some challenges? And I'm like, I want to show you one thing I think would help you based on your use case. I've got their notes pulled up. I've got their account pulled up. I know what they're trying to accomplish. I'm going to re-educate them or train them on something they might not be doing to the best to get the most out of our product and value. And that would be like, kind of like an aha moment and additional value that they weren't expecting, right? And the result of doing that was a lot more retained business, a lot more natural growth on those accounts.
I love that. Just pick up the phone attitude.
Just pick up the phone.
Yeah. There's so much that you have to do differently when you're the startup going up against a large competitor. I wonder what else worked for you, because you guys are going up against some pretty large folks in the data space.
Yep.
What else worked for you when you were going up when you were trying to compete against that?
Most of our clients were either former, number one competitor clients or current, right? And I would acknowledge that. And it's funny, account executives in different going up against different competitors. So sometimes maybe trash the competition or bash the competition or talk down about them. And I always talk up the competition. And I'm like, hey, here's what they do well. Here's why our former clients who are with us like them, who you're evaluating. And so by doing that, it would come across a place of being genuine, creating trust, not crashing the competition. So now you're coming from a place of being classy. And I think that automatically separates. Prospects aren't used to that. They're used to a little bit more. There's different levels of how much that trashing and bashing goes. But just coming from that space naturally create more trust and credibility as a salesperson, as an account executive, as a consultant. So that was one major advantage, knowing all the ins and outs of the competition as much as I could, where we win, where we lose against them, and then focusing on where we win and can provide value to our customer.
Love that. Talk to me about a moment in your kind of sales journey, maybe taking a step back, where you said, I need to be better.
Really, this was like that professional moment of clarity when I was selling whole life insurance in not great neighborhoods, sometimes door to door. We would show up with these lead cards if we couldn't book an appointment, knock on the door, say, hey, Mrs. Smith, you fill this out, try and get in there and sell them a whole life policy. So sometimes we would, a lot of competition, life insurance, we would replace policies. Okay. And at that point in my young sales career, it was all about the close, it was all about the money and like everything that kind of went into that. And I was closing people and replacing policies, even though I knew deep down it's not in the client's best interest. And man, I was pitching this elderly lady and I increased her rate and gave her lower coverage. And I walk in my car and I'm like, man, what am I doing? Like, I don't want to sell like this. I don't want to do this to people. I don't want to feel like this. So I went inside, I ripped up the contract. I called the other insurance spot. I got her hooked back with her old plan. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just not going to do that anymore. Right. So it's the sales. For a while, it was about me and the money and closing. And I'm like, I don't want to sell like that anymore. There's just no salvation in that. So that's when I kind of started selling from the other side and really focused on trying to help people.
How would you describe this new approach you have?
Better lack of the term, keeping it real, right? I'm always trying to sell from the other side. Like if I'm sitting in your seat, you're a prospect, what's important to you? Am I really listening to what they're saying? Am I just like objection handling? And am I focusing on what I want to do in a demo, right? Am I showing what I want to show and go through these unnecessary slides and decks and features? Or am I actually in tune to what we're talking about in discovery and showing you specific solutions and workflows tailored to what's valuable to Collin versus what I want to do, and then talk about pricing and try and close the deal. So being genuine, listening more, talking less, and getting to the point versus kind of talking prospects with that. They got a lot of stuff, especially software demos, a lot of AEs overtalk, oversell, overfeature, and there's no real value to the prospect there. The AEs just focus on what they want to do, how they want to do it.
Well, and it's so hard when you're a new AE at a new company and there's nothing. You're like, what are your sales materials? And the guy's like, open a Google Doc. That's it.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing. And I know it's so easy to fall into the like, okay, well, I don't have anything. I don't have a deck. I don't have a script. I don't have any talking points. I'm just going to show up and show off the product. That's the only thing I have to show off, which is like maybe okay when you're doing customer development interviews, but less okay, I think, when you're doing like proper sales calls. So help me understand how you like pull your pitch together, or you figure out what to say, what to do when you are that, or when you were like, how did you do it when you started at Seamless? Did you start out with just like, hey, here's the tool? Was it all voice? Did you have people sitting on Uber conference listening to the I'm on hold song?
Actually, the very first pitch I did, it was my day 2 at Seamless. I could barely even open a Zoom meeting at this point. Plus, I've never screen shared anything at this point. And I'm sitting in my now CRO's office, Mike Hawkins, who's the only other, he was a hire before me, and he was double booked. He's like, you have to take this meeting, you have to run it. And like my pitch was terrible. Like it was not good. I'm still like reading off the script. He's like, whatever you do, just ask for the business and ask for the credit card. And I think there's something to be said about like early startup culture. Like you talk about, be comfortable being uncomfortable, baptism by fire, and just getting into a position of extreme uncomfort and then finding out, what you're made of and optimize from there. And on the very first pitch, and I think the software stopped working like it did 50% of the time. We still won call close and got the credit card on the very first pitch.
Nice.
So, look, that's always going to happen, but that little moments like that, like give you the confidence in yourself and the confidence in the product, and that what you're doing is going to work, right? Even though you don't have the answers. So to your specific question, you gotta get in the ring and fight, and figure things out, even though you don't have all the answers, right? We didn't have all the scripts. We didn't have all, the decks. We didn't have any of that, but we knew what our product can potentially do for people. And we could, in a 30-minute conversation, figure out what their current problems are, where our micro edges of value are, speak to those. And anytime the prospect tried to get in the weeds of what's not valuable, keep focusing them back to where we can help them. Like, where are we winning? Let's talk about that and help the client to get there. So just focusing on what matters and getting to the point.
Love that. If you got, say I got a new rep, or me,
You're good.
Young kids, it's, kids bringing germs home from school season. So just constantly fighting things. So you got a new rep.
SaaS solution for that. We can talk afterwards.
Oh, yeah. And 95s as a service.
I'll send you the documents and we'll get you set up.
Yeah, okay, sick. Do you need a credit card now, or send me a Stripe link?
I've got everything I need.
There you go. Say you get a new rep and you're coaching them. Say I'm the first sales hire. I'm the first sales hire. I'm working with, the second sales hire. I happen to be the more senior rep. What would be your advice to me on like how to coach this new rep? Maybe I'm not necessarily a manager yet. Maybe I've never done this, because this is a common case where, it doesn't make sense to necessarily hire like a VP of sales to manage like one rep. So chances are first AE is rolling up to like the CEO. Second rep might roll up to that first AE or also the CEO, which is, I did that, but anyway. So help me understand, if you're that first rep hired, you're an AE, now you got to coach the next AE. What would be your advice?
So there's a few ways to unpack that question. One, we always focus on, especially in startup and in revenue, just from a straight business standpoint, what's scalable, what's repeatable, what's simple, right? And that comes down to process. And so there's a certain way to do things that has success and it's pretty repeatable. But in between that is what's not on any script or doc or report. Everyone sells differently. And so you have to encourage the individual to be themselves and find their own way while doing it within, I don't want to say the confines, that's a very limiting word, but like within the ropes of how we're trying to scale and do things for the right reason. So you have to encourage individuality without them reinventing the wheel. And when someone goes out to play basketball and they're just out there, they're shooting, they're dribbling, they're kind of flowing. They're not really thinking about playing. They're not thinking about how they're holding it or how they're shooting it. When you start doing that, you get tired. So you want to get people feeling as flowing and as loose and comfortable as possible. Giving them autonomy while also holding them accountable, right? So it's a little bit of a dance. There's no I'd say the wrong way to do it is to micromanage and be like daily KPIs guy in their face about it and ask them why they're not doing this, why they're not doing this, why they're not doing that. That gets them tight. That gets them negative. That gets them losing confidence, right? So I think it's a positive reinforcement. Hey, here's what you're doing well. Here's what you need to improve. Let's coach and train on that. I think that's part of it. And then beyond that, sales is about people. We're not just showing up to sell software. Like, that's not why people are coming to work. They've either got some family goals, they want to buy a house, they want find financial situation, whatever the case may be. Just sit down, have a conversation, take your rep out to lunch. Hey, so why are you really here? What are you really looking for? And throughout the management and growth process, knowing that and holding people accountable to that gets them a lot more motivated and disciplined to chase that versus hitting a KPI for metrics because you want them to, right? I think that tends to take care of itself. But you speak to exactly what the person really wants.
Totally. Speaking of metrics, how do you help them understand the core pieces that go into their new sales world?
The beautiful thing about sales is it's like it's hard, extremely hard, but it's simple. You're either hitting quota or you're not. You're either your number or you're not. So it's all about that, right? Especially for an account executive, your job is to close deals and generate at least X amount of revenue for the company. That's it. So if other, what I call sub-metrics aren't nearly as important, or I would argue aren't really that important at all, that's all I'm focused on. So I think done back at just simplifying it toward getting toward the number, because if they're not getting toward the number, they're not hitting their goals. Companies are hitting their goals. And then it's on me, the manager, to listen to recordings and find out why and where they need training, and then focus on those things to get them to where they need to be.
I like how you start with like what the reps' real goals are from like, what is their why? Then we start to talk about like the activity of like, what are your activity goals? Help me understand how you get them to think about the prospect's goals, because I know that's kind of the third piece to this.
Sure. Well, the process we have is how we have the discovery laid out in our Salesforce interface in our discovery section, and that's part of it, and we coach and train them on, it's so cliche to say, find the gaps, like what problems are you facing, right? Like that can be very generic. So I think it's more of like, we talk about second layer discovery a lot, second layer disco, and doing it throughout the demo, moment of potential problem, current process, desired process, here's the gap, here's how seamless or your solution can solve that, right? And so just being very problem, current state, desired state, gap, solution focused, like gap selling. We coach that a lot. So that kind of again, it simplifies it and gets to what matters.
I love that. I read Miller Hyman, not in the 80s, but I read the 80s version of like before it was the new strategic selling. I think it was just Miller Hyman strategic selling. And the words that stuck with me were, what you want to look for are their expectations and then their current reality. And then progress is only going to happen, or something is only going to happen when there's a gap between those two. And that just I'll
say something else, not to cut you off, but I think it's a good reminder for all salespeople, and it's empowering for an individual. I think a lot of account executives get on a call. Okay, I got this prospect. Like I got to do a good demo. I'm on their time. They're taking time out of their day. Look, you're on the same level playing field. Because Collin, if you're my prospect, you're taking time out of your day. I'm taking time out of mine. And you're taking time out of your day to learn about my solution, which means there's something that your current state, you want to be at desired state, and you see some layer of potential value and light where I can help you and provide value to what you're doing. Otherwise, you're not taking 30 minutes, whatever it is, out of your day to sit down with me. Yeah. So it's a good reminder for salespeople to be empowered like that versus, being a little bit, subordinate to a prospect and thinking that they're in position of power because they got the money and they can sign a contract. You can help your prospect make money. And that's why they're taking time out of their day to be.
Totally. People don't do
just head-to-head or professionals.
100%. People aren't going to do anything unless they think it's going to help them make money, either increase revenue, reduce their costs and improve their margins, or reduce risk.
Our CRO, Mike, to his credit, he's kept it pretty simple throughout our growth. He's like, look, they buy from you for one reason, or they don't buy from you for one reason, because they either believe that your product and you are going to help them make money, or they don't. Like nothing else matters, like a specific workflow and integration and like some sort of zap to a back-end ops. Like, okay, like that's nice, but that's not directly making, do you think it's going to make you money or not? And that's it. Very simple.
Yeah. I want to take that thread and kind of pull it into like how you would use that to follow up, right? Because to your point, they're only going to do something if they're going to, if they see the opportunity to help them make money. And in our pre-interview, you talked about kind of the value-added follow-up. I'd love to understand how you kind of weave that in. So maybe post-call, maybe you didn't close, this one particular one just happened to not close on the first call. So it's an anomaly. Yeah, I know. Total outlier. But every now and then, once every like 4 or 5 months, it happens. So help me understand the value-added follow-up process.
So what I do, and while I was recently director of training for the last couple of years, and what I was always trained and have a very systematic, simple process and template to put in your comments in your Salesforce. So when you bring up your dashboard, you see name, account, where the deal's at, value of account or value of deal, and then, you know, who the champion is, number, prospect number, and then P1, P2, P3, the P's being pain points, right? Those, because if you can speak, money follows pain. And you're Collin, you're one of my prospects. You're probably evaluating multiple tools, not just for our segment, but for other things as well. And really probably the last thing on your mind is my software that I'm trying to sell you. So it's the job, and money follows pain, and money follows, you know, your revenue, to remind the prospect, hey, you got this problem. I'm your solution. This helps you make money. And so just all the follow-up should be tailored about that. Not like, hey, Collin, just checking in, want to see where we're at. Hey, I wanted to follow up because of this. Like, don't do that soft stuff. Like, when we spoke last week, you shared with me 2 key challenges you're facing that's preventing you from doing X. And I do like a 2-minute Loom video specifically about that. Tailored, customized, on the spot, right? Let's find 10 minutes to take up our conversation because I know this is important to you. Here's some, whatever the case is. So it's pain, solution, reminder, value, and then asking for a next step or suggesting a next step.
Solution, value, reminder, next step. And do you vary it up? Is it kind of that, like, you say you send that one week 2, they don't reply back. Is it kind of more of the same formula? Do you change it up as it progresses?
I change it up, and this isn't going to be popular among the SaaS crowd. I'm the first account executive here. I've never used a template. I've literally never used a template. Now is that scalable? It is for me. Because all my communication to a prospect is extremely genuine. That's not canned. And it's extremely specific and tailored. So what I do before I, like the VAFU, value added follow-up, I look at my notes. I understand where we're at. I understand that I've reached out previously, how many times haven't responded. And I'm thinking critically, if I'm Collin, what's going to raise a little bit of interest and potentially provoke a response? Because I haven't done that yet. So there's no right or wrong answer there. There's just a potentially effective one. And some people ghost and whatever it's sales, close, lost. But what are creative ways to do it? Connect on LinkedIn. Also connect with other people in the org who I know that this could help. Let's say that you're not responding. I'm going to maybe have some contact with someone else in the org at some point, or I'm going to do a LinkedIn tree and connect with everyone I can. I'm going to use my product to find their cell phone and call them up. Like, hey, Susie, hey, I'm Blake. I'm actually working with their VP, Collin. And I'm going to go into it. He mentioned that this might be in your side as well. Has he mentioned anything to you, or just try to start a conversation from there? You know, hey, help me help you. We're both in sales. What would it take to get this back on his radar? What do you think would resonate with him? I'll cold call a champion I haven't talked to, who works for the person I'm trying to get a hold of, the decision maker. Speak to their value and how this can help them. Like, I know this would help you. I know you'd love to get this in your hands. What would he be responsive to right now? Sometimes I'll do that. And then commenting and adding, you know, the DM on a recent LinkedIn post, liking a comment, staying top of mind, little things like that.
What do you do if, one thing we talked about to like keep deals moving forward, you talked about the cost of inaction. Yeah. Can you help me understand that one?
Yeah. So there's ROI, and there's COI, cost of inaction. I think ROI docs or ROI calculators can be a little played out, and people don't really take them that seriously. Again, it gets down to problem solution, current state, desired state. And this is, I'm going to transition to, you know, when you get a no, right? How can you potentially turn a no into a yes without being like super salesy, objection handily about it, right? Like, hey, Collin, to totally understand, our door's always open. So I acknowledge it, I accept it, keep the door open, not to burn a bridge. And I'll say, just to understand, you know, where this is at, have you found another solution? Yeah, there's a number one problem you mentioned with me. Has your team found another solution to that problem, or does this continue to be an issue for you? Okay. If they found another solution, it means I'm with the competitor, hard to get past that. Like, yeah, well, you know, we're going to table this for a few months. I'm like, look, I understand. The door's open. I'm happy to pick this up in 90 days. What does your business look like over these next 90 days in terms of hitting the revenue target you need to hit without solving this problem? Like, no, I hear you, but like, it's not in the budget right now. I'm like, look, I get it. Like, I'll say this. If you could snap your fingers and solve this problem, let's say I gave this software to you for free, would your team use it? Yeah. So anytime they say yes, I mean that there's value. Okay. And if you solve this problem and it solves X, Y, and Z, what impact do you think that would have on your revenue? Okay. So you're saying that's a 6-7 figure potential revenue swing. We're talking about $8 to $10 grand here. Do you think we can find budget? Who do we need to talk to find $8 to $10 grand of budget to fix a 6 or 7 figure problem? And that's the challenger sale, gap selling, current state, desired state. And you've built up enough credibility, trust, and caring that you can have that conversation as a professional consultant versus trying to objection handle somebody, sell on price and hard close and all those things that aren't really effective anymore.
Love it. What happens when you eventually, like occasionally, again, probably once in 6 months, you get a no? What else do you ask? You know, I hear like cost of inaction is one.
Sure.
But what else do you ask?
I'll say, where do we miss the mark? I sent an email recently to a prospect. We had just really great first 2 conversations. Like, we were laughing it up. He's like, honestly, I met with the other rep. I really don't like their style. He's like, I really like working with you. You seem very genuine. I would love to, pick your brain. I'm like, hey, I'll train your team personally, like whatever it takes. Big on personal service. He's like, send the contract. We'll sign it today. And then I get an email the next day. Sorry, man, with a titled email. He's like, sorry, man, my boss talked to your competitor and talked him down like 80%. He wanted to sign with them, nothing I could do. And I just replied back. I'm like, hey, look, we're in sales. I hear no all the time. Where do we miss the mark? Right? Where did we miss the mark? And why did your CEO go with them over us? And what could we have done more to earn your business? So asking those types of questions.
Love that. I think I appreciate having you on. I want to give you a chance to kind of share a little bit about Seamless, but you have possibly the greatest objection handling story I've ever heard. I'd love if you could share that with us.
Man, this was the toughest sales day of my life for sure. And like before I got into software, I didn't graduate college. I dropped out of college to cold call for $10 an hour to learn how this is done and travel around with the CEO. I did that for 10 years, calling out in the yellow pages. So that was interesting. I was selling cable door to door, and I was selling life insurance essentially door to door. And I'd probably have like 2 appointments a day. Then I'd show up with these lead cards, as I mentioned. When I was generally about a 50% close rate. So if I got to 2 doors, I would write 1 policy. I went to 8 doors on this hot summer day, and at that time we were wearing suits. My air conditioning wasn't working. Little thin times. And I'm like, I don't go home without a sale. Like, it's not today, not ever. I'm not going home without a sale. It's always like the one more approach. So it's getting past sunset. I'm like, I'm going to drive my next lead card 25 miles away. I'm going to drive 25 miles in my summer in my suit, in my non-AC. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to get this door. I'm going to sell a policy at 9 p.m. So drive to this house out in the middle of nowhere. Now you go up, those like doors are like all wood, and they have like that little window, but it's like covered. It's kind of dark, like they can see you, but you can't see. So I knock, and I hear, he's like, hello? I'm like, yeah, Mr. Winters, it's Blake over at the insurance company. I'm your insurance agent. He's like, who? I'm like, yeah, sir. He's like, no. Like these very one-word answers. I'm like, I'm objection handling this damn guy for like 10 minutes. Through a door, like, I am getting in this door and I am selling some life insurance today, man. After then I got quiet and I look over in the other window and there's these curtains kind of shuffling around, and this big ass parrot just looks at me and starts going, ha ha, and just laughing at me. I'm like, man, I'm in the wrong business. Like, this is brutal. So I was trying to objection handle a freaking parrot for like 8 minutes. After the worst sales day of my life, I drove home, and we had a few beers that night.
It's a character building moment, right?
That was a very character building moment. You question a lot of things on that long drive home.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those, like, you either stay in sales or like you realize that you're hard enough to be in it. Or, sorry, you either bail from sales or you realize you're hard enough to be in it forever.
Yeah. And you saw those moments every day in sales.
Totally. Well, speaking of,
I'm 0 for 1 on Paris. Don't recommend it.
0 for 1. Yeah. I don't think I've ever tried that. I've got some stories, but I'd love to throw it back to you. You know, speaking of closing business, you're still you're with Seamless, trying to help the sales team. Tell me a little bit about what you all do at Seamless and how people listening might be able to benefit.
Sure. Everyone needs good data, right? Everyone needs good data to fuel their outreach and top of funnel. I think where there's a misconception on perceived value of an all-in-one solution, or these bells and whistles that are kind of nice to have but not needs to have. You know, if you're filling your funnel and your CRM and your sequences full of subpar data for the sake of automations and conveniences that check boxes that a C-level thinks that that's valuable, you are hurting your reach and connect rate of your total addressable market, because you're basically putting diesel gas into a Ferrari engine, right? You don't want to do that. You want to put the best data, which is your revenue gas, into your revenue engine. So what Seamless has built is a personal and real-time search engine for business contact data. We have intent data. We have some other, good integrations and things like that. But we are focused on bringing you the best data, the most accurate data, as quickly and efficiently as possible at scale. And by doing that, our clients are able to fuel their revenue engines and systems and integrations and processes with the best data, which leads to the best results. And over the last, it's wild, man, to go from 5 of us and doing software demos where half the time the screen would just go blank, or there'd be all these random buttons all over the screen. And the screen should say, now, Collin, imagine this. So like those were the days of $100 month-to-month canceling time, and where we scale to revenue-wise now. And, we took 400 employees for a while, and it's pretty special what we're doing to be a part of it. But we help a lot of people, help a lot of customers. Love the opportunity to anyone listening to this, book a meeting and help your team too.
Right on. If anybody's interested in talking to you, talking about Seamless, working for you, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Sure. Shoot me an email. It's blake@seamless.expert. You can also go to seamless.ai and create a free account, and an SDR will probably contact you in 10 seconds.
Beautiful. Blake, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing a little bit about your journey, a little bit about how you sell, and the parrot story. I'll never forget that.
Yeah. I might have to go get a pet parrot, man. Like, I think you unintentionally reverse sold me. I've never had a pet bird, much less any desire to get a bird, but I might get a parrot. Just kind of keep them in the Zoom background during demos.
Teach him how to objection handle.
Hopefully he's not yelling no throughout the demo. We got to teach him how to say yes or sign a contract, something.
Totally.
But hey, man, thanks for having me on. Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, man.
And great speaking today, man.
It's good talking to you too. And thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you all next week.